Kelly, 30 years later, can you believe that it has been 30 years since you hoisted that national championship trophy?
I cannot. The time has just flown by. It seems like we could have been doing it yesterday, but, it goes fast. 30 years went fast.
Do you have a celebration planned with your teammates this year at all since it has been 30? I know you guys have done different things throughout the years, but anything planned for this year?
Well, I've actually heard that there is something planned. When we were up there at the spring ball, I hadn't heard much, and then talked to Marv Allen the other day, and supposedly there's something planned. They're trying to get as many people back on September 11th, I think, when they play Houston, and then on Friday have like a get-together reunion with Lavelle and President Holland there and a few people like that. So it should be fun.
Kelly Smith with us on BYU Sports Nation, running back for the '84 national championship team. Do you wear your national championship ring, Kelly?
I do not. I have it at my house and in a drawer, and every once in a while, if I have to go speak for something, I usually take it with me. I've only worn it a couple times back when we first won it, and we were speaking all over the place, and I used to wear it on my ring finger. And I had a person ask me a question, well, how come you don't wear your wedding ring? And I said, well, anybody can get married. It's pretty tough to win a national championship. And they kind of got mad at me, but my wife understands. I don't wear any rings or jewelry, but no, I take it with me from time to time when kids want to see it.
That's the ultimate authoritative symbol. If anybody ever questions you on anything football related, you'd be like, really? Really?
Yeah. For street cred, it's either that or a neck tattoo, let's be honest.
That's Kelly, right. I mean, go ahead.
My parents went to the game, Kelly, but they left me a 14-month-old at my uncle's house in San Diego. I'm going to see my mom today. She's coming into town. Was that a mistake on their part, or did they make the right move by leaving a baby at home?
Well, I can't believe that. I can't believe they'd leave their 14-month home when there's, a chance to win a national championship. Should have been there.
I'm going to tell my mom today that you said that. Mom, the guy that scored the game-winning touchdown told me you made a mistake. Thank you. Right. I appreciate that, Emma.
Kelly Smith with us on BYU Sports Nation. We're celebrating the 30th year anniversary of that national championship. What impact did winning the national title have on BYU football over the last 30 years, Kelly?
It's made a big impact. It actually changed, I think, the bowl series the way it is now.
Yep,
BYU was definitely the last team to win a national championship that wasn't in one of those big conferences, and they kind of wanted to change it so they probably couldn't win another one. But it changed it, and it made a lot of conversation, and it's made a lot of changes over the years. I think, the playoff system will eventually get to 8 teams, and it's probably good. Like you were saying earlier, for BYU to even have a chance, they're going to have to go undefeated, which is probably fine, and they should be able to do that with some of their scheduling. It makes it a little more difficult now being independent, but, BYU still has the name out there. They still recognize, they still know they have a good program, and they're getting, players that are capable of going undefeated and having a chance to play in that bowl series.
So you think it's a little harder for BYU to have a chance to get into the college football playoff as an independent versus, say, staying in the Mountain West Conference?
No, I think they're better as an independent, but they have to have a tougher schedule. They got to play some more teams outside of the conference, because that's the only time that people are going to look and say, well, they did beat a Texas, or they beat a Texas A&M, or they beat a Notre Dame or a USC, because just beating the teams in the Mountain Conference is not going to do it anymore. I mean, they're looking at I think those 5 big conferences are trying to keep everybody else out, basically.
Kelly Smith, running back on the 1984 national championship BYU team, joins BYU Sports Nation. I want to know what the huddle was like on that game-winning drive right before the play where you caught the game-winning touchdown pass. Walk us through what was happening on the field and in the huddle.
Okay, back then, when we're playing the game, we're just kind of in the moment. You don't really think about, hey, this is the game-winning drive or this or that. We always felt we had a chance to score every time we had the ball. And obviously you remember that Robbie got hurt, and then he came back. And we'd been moving the ball quite regularly and moving it pretty good. And we actually had changed. We have what we call the 69 halfback option play, and we were running it a lot. And we changed it a little bit because they were blitzing every single time. Instead of having me block, I just dumped out in the flat, and Robbie just kept dumping it to me, and I had several catches in that game. And so at the last drive, we said, okay, we're going to call this play, but Kelly, you're probably going to get double teamed, so we're going to look for Dave Mills coming across behind, because after I'd caught so many balls, they started double teaming me. So As we called the play, we thought it was probably going to go to Dave, but he actually got held, and we had an automatic scramble play on. If Robbie scrambled, if you're on the outside, you break this way or you come across or whatever. So the play actually happened to be a broken play, and I was out in the flat trying to be double teamed, and then as he scrambled, I just broke down the sideline, and he actually found me in the corner and caught the pass, and, you know, history was made. And they show the highlight all the time, and people always say, oh, that was you, you know, and I keep thinking I'm going to drop it one of these times, but I keep hanging on, so that's good.
Did you see the flag on the play initially, and what went through your mind?
Did not see the flag, and you know, and as soon as we were all going back after we thought we'd, you know, had a touchdown, then we saw the flag, and then all of a sudden we saw Robbie clapping his hands, knowing that the ref said it was actually defensive holding instead of offensive holding, because you never know. That whole game, Bo Schambecker was complaining that we were holding them the whole time and this and that. So you never knew what would have happened. And yeah, he did complain a lot.
Did you realize in that moment, with the minute 23 left, it's over, we did it? Or were you still on pins and needles?
No. I mean, you never know until it's over. We knew that was, you know, a big thing. We knew that by not having to kick the field goal and getting a touchdown, that, you know, they were probably not going to be able to go all the way down and score against our defense, because they'd been playing fairly well that game. And so, you know, we were hopeful, but that wasn't the big part. We just knew that if we went undefeated, it was still out of our hands. We still knew we had no control. Most national championship teams know right after they win the game if they're going to get it, and we had to wait clear till the rest of the bowls were over in January, and our game was like around Christmas time, so that was the hardest part.
So you didn't celebrate the fact that you won the national championship per se initially. You kind of hoped you would?
No, we just had to hope for help and the voters and who knows. And
even
I think
though you were number one?
Even though we were number one and even though we're undefeated, there was so much talk about if, you know, Oklahoma won the Orange Bowl or whoever they were playing at, Washington did this or that they could bump ahead of us just because of our schedule. And so we really didn't know until after it was all over. And so we kind of had another celebration, which kind of wasn't as fun as if it would have been that night and they handed you the trophy and they do all that. So we kept getting interviews and radio stations and TV stations and everything. What do you think? What do you think? And we're like, hey, we're just waiting. So that was kind of the hardest thing about that year, was waiting until later in the year.
Celebrating the national championship for BYU 30 years later, we're talking to Kelly Smith. Let's be honest, a lot of the media attention from the national level was not great because BYU was still kind of the unknown. They were the guy that was outside of those power conferences. What was it like hearing guys like Bryant Gumbel say you played Bo Diddley Tech, and how did that make you feel?
You know, I actually believe that he was probably the best thing that happened for BYU in winning the national championship. He got more recognition and more people to watch our game because he said those comments, and because he made it so negative, all the other people in the country says, well, let's watch this team, let's see how really good or bad they are because of what he said. And I think it actually helped us. So, you know, we turned the negative into a positive, but it was probably the best thing he could have done for us is to make that negative comment.
The real question is, what did Bo Diddley ever do to Bryant Gumbel, Kelly?
Exactly. What did he ever do to him?
He's like a jazz musician or something, right?
Maybe, but you can almost see his point. It's almost like, you know, think about it. I mean, here, you know, BYU, and the biggest problem about that year too is we're playing a Michigan team, even though they'd won like 6 of their last 7 games, even though they had like an 8-5 record, but they did beat the team who went in and won the Rose Bowl, and they did beat another team who went and won another bowl and all those things. So they're saying, well, they didn't even get to play a powerhouse, but it wasn't our decision who we got to play. We'd have went and played anybody. The best thing that happened was Washington, who complained that they should have been national champs. We played them in like the first home game the next year and beat them like 31-3, and that kind of really helped us. And people don't realize from the year before, we lost the first game at Baylor, then we went 11 straight wins. Yeah. And so when we'd won the 13 games, we actually were on a 24-game win streak and then even won our 25th by beating Boston College in the Kickoff Classic. So we had won 25 straight games. Not too many college teams can say that, and we'd beaten some really good teams in there that weren't Bo Diddley Tech type school. So, I mean, and you look back at it and you look at it that way, I mean, we're really proud of what we accomplished and the games we won. And, hey, we couldn't help the schedule we had, and we would have played anybody, anywhere, anytime. And there was probably more players drafted off that team from both sides of the ball and played in the NFL. So, you know, they couldn't complain too bad after they saw the work over maybe a 3-year span.
24 consecutive wins. And that goes along with what we've been saying. It takes a very, very special run to be at the elite of college football. Can you talk about how unique it was that BYU, even with 24 straight wins, how you needed outside help to make this kind of miracle of a national championship happen?
It was. You always need help from other places, and you need people to say things, or you need to have other teams lose. And there was those type of things. And you know, and I know that playing in those few years, that the groundwork was set years earlier for BYU. By when they started going to bowl games and started having, you know, all the success in the passing game and getting the recognition from some of those prior players. And you know, even though Steve Young and, you know, wasn't on the national championship team, so many people think he was. They don't realize that, you know, he went out the year earlier in '83. But all those type of teams and games and put more recognition, and so BYU finally got to be in the big show. And ESPN back then was not really a big name, and the Holiday Bowl was one of their biggest bowls. And so we kind of felt like ESPN kind of got its start back in there, and it kind of helped us and pushed us into the limelight that way.
BYU certainly in the center of college football history at different points, and things that you just mentioned, Kelly. We've been talking about one of the things associated with BYU winning a national championship is the fact that because BYU's done it once, every year BYU fans, myself included, think, hey, what if, right? What if? Has that been a kind of an impact that you've seen 30 years later? Is there's sort of this expectation to be great at BYU because they won a national championship?
Absolutely. And that, you know, that's how it is in any sport in any way. If you do it once, why not do it again?
Exactly.
If a high school team wins the state championship once, why not again? And so the expectations are high. But on the other hand, that's a great thing for the school because it's easier to get recruits saying, look, we did this once. We have a chance to do it again. We have a great facility. I mean, the fans are awesome. I mean, go to a BYU game, you know, they're going nuts. And it's awesome to see the students there and the fans and people. Because, I mean, Provo's not a really big town, but they pack that stadium every year. And so it's a fun college atmosphere. And, you know, and I think it would be great if they had a chance to do it again or to at least make it into the bowl series to see. But, again, they're going to have to go undefeated. They're not going to be able to lose one game because they won't put them in there. They're always going to put an SEC team in there even with one loss.
Let's ask you our Twitter question today, and that is, what is the realistic pinnacle for BYU football in independence in the current landscape of college football?
Well, you mean how many wins do I think they're going to have to get, or is it going to be?
What's the pinnacle? Like, where could BYU end up at its peak?
Well, you know, I think they could go undefeated. I honestly do. I think, but they're going to have to schedule 3 to 4 teams that are in the top 10 or 15 schools in the country and win all those games to have that chance. If they're playing 1AA teams and they're playing lower conference teams, I mean, they're going to win 8 games every year just by setting their schedule up if they want because of the makeup of the program. But the problem is they're going to have to go 11-1, 12-1, 13-0 to have that chance. And realistically, BYU should win 10 games every year. I mean, the way it's set up, the coaching staff, the players, the people they should get, and that's a great expectation. If they can get a 10-win season and win a bowl game, I mean, for the way it's set up right now, that's probably pretty good for BYU.
Absolutely. And let's finish with this. Do you have the football from the Holiday Bowl in '84?
I do not have the actual game ball. I think Robbie ended up with the game ball.
Of course.
I mean, I still get mad at Robbie because, I mean, I think I probably would have been the MVP if he wouldn't have come back in out of the locker room. Think of those 3 injuries, so that his shoulder, his knee, and his ankle.
Queen.
I know, he faked it all, you know, and then he comes back in and goes, well, I guess I'll win the ball instead of you. I do have my helmet that I wore, and I still have my game jersey, and it's interesting because all the jerseys only said the last names, and mine actually has K. Smith on it. And people asked me that before. I said, how come your name actually had a letter on it? And we practiced at San Diego State when we were down there, and we actually had 4 lockers broke into, and they stole 4 of the jerseys when we were down in San Diego practicing for the Holiday Bowl. So as they came to us, there was another Smith, Ken Smith, on the team, and another Smith. He says, well, why don't we just put K. Smith on yours? I said, hey, that's great. So at the game, I'm the only jersey that had a letter on it, so it must have meant something. They had to throw it to the one that had the K. Smith on it. So
awesome.
I've been asked that question several times. I'm like, because my jersey got stolen. It'd be interesting to know who actually had my real jersey.
Hey, Robbie gets the game ball, and you get the K. Smith jersey.
That's right. I get the K. Smith jersey. But I do have my helmet still, and I like that because the actual helmet I wore in the game I still have.
Kelly, it's been great to talk to you. I'm sure that Blaine Fowler at some point will ask you how he had the same amount of rushing yards as you did in that game. And so Blaine he's prone to
Blaine and I are really
like
good friends, and we talk quite a bit, and Blaine's awesome. And he probably did have more yards, but if you want to tease him and say that's because he couldn't see over the line to pass it, so he had to take off and run. You can tease him and tell him that. So, hey, he had to get those yards somehow because he was running for his life.
You both had 7.
I'm just teasing. What's that?
You both had 7 yards, so congratulations.
But I did have a rushing touchdown. He did not.
Yeah.
That you did.
Booyah.
But that's right. But I did have 10 catches, I think. I don't know how many yards it was in catches, but I did have 10 catches.
10 catches, 88 yards, and a touchdown, and a national championship.
That's right.
Kelly, thanks for the time. We appreciate it. Fun to chat.
Hey, it's fun. So are you going to do this every week and have a different player every week?
Every Wednesday.
Oh, wow, yeah. Next.
Every Wednesday until
till who knows?
Reunion or through the year or what?
Who's on next Wednesday again? I can't remember.
David Mills.
David Mills is on next week.
Yeah.
David Mills.
And then Marv Allen the week after that.
Oh, great. Well, make sure when you get Dave on there to ask him why his nickname was Sluggo.
Sluggo?
The route?
Uh-huh. That's because he was so slow.
I'm sure he'll have a different take on that.
I'm sure he will.
We will ask him that. Kelly, thanks for the time.
Hey, you're welcome.